Today I'll be covering the topic of digital television and media. And our lesson comes from Communication Technology Update and Fundamentals by Meadows. I also have a slideshow that goes along with this presentation. So when I ask you to move to the next slide, it'll make a lot more sense if you're following along with the slide presentation. So in that order, please move to the next slide. So we're going to talk about relevant impacts of technology. And one of the most glaring impacts is going from cable television to digital streaming content. And back in the late 1950s, early 60s is when cable televisions came into big cities. And so people that lived in big cities could watch television, but then in the rural areas, they weren't so lucky. There was a gentleman, he wanted his wife to enjoy the same shows that her family was in a big city. So he went out into a mountain and he put up an antenna, and his wife was able to watch a few television shows. And that's kind of where cable TV started. Now, fast forward, and we have digital television, and we have the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission, and they have a lot of regulations on what can happen and what in order to get a digital television station and etc. Some other relevant impacts are that we now don't sit in front of a TV and wait for the next broadcast showing of that show a week later. We now can go on and download the content. We can go on Netflix or any of the other ones and download a whole series and watch it over the weekend. So we don't have to wait for our TV to be handed, our stations to be handed to us. Interactive television has come into play on the television shows like Dancing with the Stars. They ask you, there's a little prompt in there on the screen that tells you to text in your vote for your favorite duo. Another show that I can think of is called America's Got Talent. And that is where they ask you to go online and vote, but these little interactions on screen, and sometimes you'll only see them on shows that you're watching. It says, what do you think the actor's going to do next, or you can tweet in your responses, and those are called a second screen. And in order for young viewers to even be engaged anymore, it's kind of a given that has to be part of a show. Another thing that's happened is that cameras are competing with cell phones that have digital capabilities. For example, I don't have a video camera, so I'm using my phone to record this video. So to be in competition with cell phone companies, in which the cameras are getting smaller and they're getting a lot more capabilities, and the prices are dropping. I looked up the price of a GoPro. It's the latest Hero 7. It is waterproof, and if you get in silver color, it's $2.99, or if you get in white color, it's $1.99, and that's phenomenal compared to just a few years ago. The other thing is that the cinematography cameras are shrinking, and those are massive. Those are just large cameras. They have so much capabilities, and the Sony Cine-Alta 4K digital camera, I looked it up, just is $29,000, whereas in our book, it was $65,000, and our book is published in 2016, so that's only a few years, and it's half price. So those are ways that they're competing with other types of media. And then again, going from analog to digital television. So the trend to switch started in Taiwan. They were the first ones to get it completed in 2010. Brazil completed it last year, and the US was scheduled to be 2009, but it was closer to 2016 that they finally completed the whole rollover to digital television. We now have ultra high def TVs. We have Japan has a super high def, and they call it SHV, excuse me, and those technologies are able to to go into schools and large corporations and do big presentations. So there's no, it's eliminating a few more things there. In Japan, they're super high vision. They want to be able to use that in the 2020 Olympics. Another thing is the OLED televisions that have quantum dots in it. It's a physics term, and it's a thin layer of nanocrystals that's between the backlight and the display screen that really makes a clearer picture. It has a lot more color capabilities, and it's almost like a 3D effect. And if you do go to the next slide, you can kind of see a picture of an LG OLED TV, and if you were watching it on the real TV, it'd be a lot clearer, but there it is. So societal impacts include the push-to-pull system, and the push was when the broadcast stations push the information out to the user, but now the users are pulling it. They're watching what they want to watch, when they want to watch it. They're literally pulling it down through things like Netflix and Hulu. And television as the window to the world. Economists predict that one day our televisions will be very thin, almost like window pane, and they'll look like our home windows, and they'll be our digital view to the digital world, basically. And the last thing is a large amount of the population is moving over to OTT technology. And if you move to the next slide, I'll kind of tell you a little bit about OTT technology. It's the cord shavers and the cord cutters, and it's people that they're ditching their. Oh, I did want to go back and say that OTT is what the phrase is in the United States, and connected is what Europe and basically the rest of the world call it. It's connected TV, and it eliminates the HDMI cables. When you have a computer and a television that can do the same thing, they call it a telecomputer. That was interesting. But the cord shavers and the cord cutters, basically, they're replacing their internet, their cable, and they have a small antenna, and they have their smart TV, and they can just download services through like Apple TV and Google TV. Allow that to happen. The broadcast stations don't like it, so they're holding on to things like the Super Bowl and the NCAA tournaments. So those are available through packages through broadcast stations. However, you can get them if you stream them, but they're super, super expensive. So a lot of people don't do that. You have a dual screen in which a user watches TV and has access to social media and pictures in a different window. And Samsung Smart Hub television technology is an example of that. And they'll have, where you have, it's almost like a kinetic effect where you can have, motion detection to make that run. And also additional regulations by the FCC. So there's a lot more regulations on broadcasting, and they might even move to have regulations for internet television as well in the future. And then if we move on to the next slide, careers. Well, we're in a digital media class, it's a communication class, so assuming you want to take this course to graduate, you'll probably be looking for a job. So careers in this field would include an interim at a local broadcast station. You could also work here at Liberty University on the television station, or any college that you're attending. Entry-level positions at a video production company, and there's always talent hunters looking for creative people. And there was a job site on here that I wanted to say that instead of just offering help, you want to offer a solution. So instead of just asking for a job, find ways find something that needs fixed with the job, and see how you can go in and offer real value. You can also do freelance work. And another thing is you can do screenwriting. If you're a good writer, you can go into screenwriting competitions, and then you can be picked up by as a screenwriter, and that'll get you. If you move on to the next slide, please. I'm going to bring in the biblical worldview, because as students of Liberty, it's kind of our job to put a biblical spin on our projects. And in my research, in 2008, there was a Reverend Pete Phillips who was kicked out of this Durham Cathedral worship service because he was reading the Bible off his cell phone. And in 2008, cell phones were not allowed in the church whatsoever, and so he was kicked out. He was a reverend. Well, fast forward 10 years, and now the same Durham Catholic Cathedral Church allows worshipers to take photos in the church. They can read their Bible on an app. They can do devotion, but all this took time over a span of 10 years. So when the Reverend Phillips, who he was the one that kind of like petitioned for cell phones to be used in the services, where he stated that asking people to restrict them from phone use was kind of like having them cut off their arms. I thought that was quite funny. But also faiths are adopting online technologies to make it easier to people to communicate ideas and to worship. And sometimes you may not be able to, you might live too far from a church, but you can still load video content on your phone or on your smart pad or laptop or anything like that. And if you go to the next slide, it's again continuing with the biblical worldview. Colossians, in the Bible, in the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 32, states that we're to work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord and not for humans. And that's the New Living Translation. And we kind of need to continue that, to keep our focus on working for Christ and not for other people. And can you imagine if the Reverend Phillips thought, oh, I can't use my phone, let me just put it away, I never thought about it again? Well, he actually went on to become the director of the Kodak Research Center for Digital Technology at the Durham Cathedral that he originally got kicked out of. So imagine if he didn't pursue the need for better technology in churches, and we wouldn't have these abilities that we do now. So it's a lot easier today to reflect on God's Word at any place we happen to be, thanks to streaming content. Kind of want to leave you with that. If you move to the next slide, you'll see future trends. And future trends I see are the 8K digital televisions, fiber to the home, FTTH. We're going to have a lot more clarity and a better online presentation for programming and resolutions. The cameras, I believe, are going to shrink, and the prices will shrink as well, and the abilities will expand. And then perhaps YouTube sensations will be coming over to streaming television shows and bring their loyal followers with them. So there'll be, a lot more audiences involved. And if you move on to the next slide, we're almost done. Talking about digital and TV, the values involved with those. And some values in these is and now moving on to the values of digital TV and video. One of the values I see is that technology should not be ignored. It shouldn't be avoided. It should be embraced, so we can promote it to do all things for the glory of God, just as 1 Corinthians 10:31 states. So whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. So I leave you with this question to respond to. Do you feel technological advances in television and video are benefiting our society in a Christian aspect or not? And I'd like you to please explain in detail and with examples why you feel the way you do. I thank you so much for your time today. I hope you learned a lot. And if you do want to see my references, they are on the next slide. Thank you so much.